Don't sit like that, or don't be too noisy. Oh, it's everybody sitting nicely, yay!
You're probably thinking, Teacher Tina has gone crazy. I can assure you my sanity is still intact. In today's discussion, let's talk about behavior management, the do's and don'ts when handling disruptive and aggressive students. Let's go.
When we say classroom management, of course, you want to have a system where you reward positive behavior. But there are also times, and it can be tough because there are with other students, other kids, that there will be kids who will become violent.
Yeah, it's also not easy to deal with, not easy to deal with even noisy, distracting kids. And when they become violent, actually, it's even more challenging. First of all, of course, yelling or constantly punishing or just talking, blaming them, talking about their behavior, always using negative statements, it never helps, because I'm pretty sure you experienced that too. You cannot just keep blaming them and not fighting. You don't sit nicely, you don't finish your task, you don't do this properly all the time, you are not, it's not helping them. So what I think, most of the time, I try to understand. If it's something happening very often, I try to understand what kind of problem that particular student has. So if it's something really happening constantly, I try to find out the reason. This kind of kids, I really want them under control in my class. Also, it's not just about their own good, it's also about the other kids. If they keep distracting all the other kids in class, then it's not going to be a effective lesson. I believe that classroom management or dealing with this kind of issues start actually outside of the classroom. Sometimes I stand in front of the door before they enter my authority. I try to give them that message unconsciously, because I want them to feel this zone with the rules even before they enter the classroom. So as soon as they enter, I'm like, all right, hello, welcome, high five. Are you ready? I really want them to see me at the door and feel that whatever they are doing outside of the classroom, on the corridor, shouting or swearing or, little bit fighting, whatever they do, I want them to have this feeling. As soon as you enter this classroom, yes, the teacher is waiting at the door, which means as soon as I enter, I have to follow the rules. I really want them to feel that. And instead of, as I told you, instead of using some negative statements like no fighting, you're not sitting nicely, you're talking too much, you're not listening, I always prefer talking about whole class. All right, everyone, thank you. Everybody's sitting nicely except a couple of students, and they're joining us soon. Thank you, very nice. Teacher is happy. Or thank you very much. All right, that's really good. Instead of saying don't speak, I can say, oh, please listen, very nice, everybody's listening. Or instead of saying, don't stand up, nice, please sit nicely, everybody. It's really nice to use some positive statements just to encourage them, to settle them down. If you want to be in control, if you want to, deal with particular type of students, you have to be really positive, because just screaming or shouting at them is very ineffective strategy, in my opinion. I really want to give them sometimes some responsibilities, even if it's secondary or primary. Actually, it works very well. I give them some responsibilities. All right, now you're my assistant, or you are the teacher today. All right, everybody, say hello to Mr. Tom. Good morning, Mr. Tom. You're the teacher. Could you please remind us classroom rules? And then 5 minutes ago, he was the kid that who didn't follow the rules. 5 minutes later, you make him the kid sitting there on your chair and telling everyone in classroom rules. Look, listen, try your best, raise your hand, okay, please take all those worksheets and hand out, and then do this. Or could you please click, can you please go, and you're in charge of computer while I'm talking. Next, good job, you're the best assistant, high five. You're gonna be my assistant again, I'm so happy, wow, amazing. They are so different the moment they do something in front of the class or they do something for you, and because they are so used to be shouted, probably previous teacher, previous school, everyone was just yelling at them and they just ignore you. It's not going to work for them. But the moment you change your attitude, the moment you change your language, instead of yelling at them, you speak, you smile, it really changes them. And this is our objective, right? We don't want them to get worse. We want them to just calm down and take some responsibilities and follow the rules, which I believe works most of the time for this kind of particular type of students in class.
Very, very good, Sada. I think you have talked about so many good things in terms of how we redirect negative behavior in class. First of all, you're right. You have to create safe environment for your students. So I like that you greet them at the door, and that already is a good start. That once they enter your classroom, they know that they will feel safe there, regardless of their academic, performance. Sometimes we see students misbehaving because they feel that because they're not very good in class, maybe that they've been ignored. And so it's a good thing that you have established that at the very beginning. Everybody is safe. It doesn't matter if you are the smartest in class or if sometimes you don't finish our activities. But when you're here, I want you to have fun and want you to be yourself. So that's, I think, what's very important when we talk about behavior. And you also talked about how you give responsibilities, which is a good thing because, like what you mentioned, some of these kids, they just want to gain the attention. Maybe they're not getting that because the points do not go to them. They don't know the answers, maybe, or they haven't finished the activity. And so they feel again that they've been neglected. But if you give them responsibilities, then that will turn their poor performance academically into something still productive in class. So I really like that. I assess how severe the behavior is, if because there are times that you can let that kind of behavior just go through its own course and not intervene right away. There are a lot of teachers who think that they have to be always in control, that they have to show their students that I am the boss, that I can make him or her stop that bad behavior right away. But it's not really about that. It's understanding your students and where they are at in this emotion. For example, if it's something that they can just control by resetting. So I look at, and there's a kid, for example, who's snatching pencils or not letting everyone in the team use the crayons. Then I'm going to observe first. And what I do is, okay, I go to the kid and I go, maybe we need a little bit of a reset. When they feel not so good and they're not yet ready to be their best in the classroom, I go, all right, let's go reset. Let's go to the toilet and wash our face. Like, just that splash of cold water is just like a moment to realize that,
Ah, that's good.
right, you don't need to be too violent or to be too angry over like coloring materials or like being the leader of an activity. So I do that. I check first. If it's something that's not that severe, then we do a reset. If the behavior is really violent, then of course it will be good for us teachers as well to know what kind of disciplinary system the school has in place from your principal. So what do we do if you've done everything to the best of your knowledge, how to redirect a kid's behavior, but it's not being effective, then you know that you're doing what's right and you're covered as well. There are some schools that are very clear with their behavior expectations from their students and the consequences if they are not met. You give a warning first. Some schools will say, first, give a warning, have an isolated activity for 1 minute. If that doesn't work, 2 minutes. If that doesn't work, then you go to a designated teacher who acts like a counselor in the school. If that doesn't work, then you can still go to this next step, which is maybe to talk with a manager, seek the help of the parents at the very bottom. So there is a procedure that you can do. What we really want is, of course, number one, to make sure that the time that the kids spend in class is memorable in a sense that it is a good, experience. Sometimes they will have bad days, but we want to turn those bad days into something that they will learn something from. And number two, we don't want the other children's learning to be affected, like you said. So if you know the disciplinary system in your school, then it's good because you know that you're following what is in the guidelines, and you are also covered if a parent complains, that they know that you have followed and you have done everything that you can to make sure that the kid is not penalized for something that he or she doesn't actually know that she's done something wrong. Because like what you said earlier, you just don't tell a kid, don't sit like that, or don't be too noisy. If you're focusing too much on the negativity, what they say is that you're just pointing out the negativity, but you're not teaching the kid how to behave correctly, what positive behavior is. But you're just pointing out what you don't like, but you're not telling them what you actually like. Which is why when I realized that, oh yeah, that's right. Like if I always focus on the negativity, don't do this, don't do that, I'm not teaching them anything. But if I
agree.
like what you do, let's all sit nicely, and you pinpoint the good students, you highlight them following the rules. But you see that there's maybe one or two, then all right, everybody's sitting nicely. That's great. Oh, but there is one girl at the back and another boy in the corner. Of course, you're not pointing them out, but they're like, oh, who is this? Am I the one who's not following the rules? And they go, and behavior, and they sit nicely. And then you go, oh, it's everybody sitting nicely. Yay. Like, because you're teaching them this is the kind of behavior you want for your class. And maybe sometimes we don't do it all at the same time, but we're not going to focus on those kids because definitely there are 10 more kids doing it correctly. You want to focus on that and then let the others join in by saying, oh, there's two more, wait for these two. And then they go, okay, yay, we have to teach them to look at the positivity, may it be performing well academically or with soft skills, and that's interacting with their peers, respecting their teacher and their classmates.
When I discuss with you, it's not just sharing my experience or what I do in my class. I also learn a lot. And as I told you, I was even taking notes like for myself, all those things I like 2 years later. Thank you very much. I really appreciate also. It's really motivating to have colleagues like you, people who care, because teaching, as I told you at the beginning, is to me, it's a craft. It's not just having a bunch of books and technology, okay, some online games and go enter the classroom and just teach. You have to have this natural charisma. I think you're born with it. It's like leadership, you shouldn't mind being silly in front of the students, and teachers are literally like actors. You have to have fun first just to let them have fun. It's also find out what kind of problems they have, what kind of solutions we should find, and what kind of safe and fun atmosphere we should create in the classroom for them to have fun. I'm really glad we discussed about that, and hopefully we're going to discuss some other topics in the future.
Yeah, thank you so much, Seda, for sharing your best practices. I have learned a lot.
Thank you for inviting me.
Thank you so much. And I am so looking forward to our next session. Thank you, Seda.
Yes.
Thanks so much for watching, everybody. Please check out the first 2 parts of this episode. Don't forget to subscribe and see you again next time.